welcome to another episode of What We've Been Watching on the Fight or Flight Network. Today we're going to talk about certain movies we've been watching, as told in the title. We have Crystal, Noel, and Kendall with us today. Hi, everyone. Who wants to go
Hi.
first?
Not me.
I can go first, I suppose.
Okay, Crystal.
This movie is a little bit underrated, I feel. It came out in 2006, and it's directed by William Friedkin of Exorcist fame, and it's called Bug, and it stars Ashley Judd and Michael Shannon.
Oh, snap. I know that movie.
I love it. I've never felt like I'm always appreciate small movies with big ideas, and this is one that did a lot with a little. And there's only one set. Basically, it's a hotel room where this woman she has a troubled past with an abusive ex-boyfriend who's played by Harry Connick Jr.
Ooh.
And she kind of falls with this really nice but also troubled guy, Michael Shannon, and they get together, and then she starts seeing bugs everywhere and starts getting paranoid about the bugs, and it just turns into madness. And it's the most insane, like, you can see somebody's mind being torn out, from paranoia.
The slow
And
process of insanity.
When
exactly.
you say bugs, you don't mean insects. You mean listening devices?
No, but
No,
like
insects.
Oh,
She
okay.
sees insects on her skin, in the bed, in the carpet, in the clothing, and she just can't. She loses it, and Michael Shannon starts to share her paranoia as well.
There
And
is an argument with certain disorders entailing mostly loneliness. When they have hallucinations and paranoias about insects, it's almost always ants, because ants are a colony insect, and they're all about like community, and they can't be separated from their group and everything. So when people are having disorders involving loneliness, ants, they become so paranoid about ants.
How interesting.
Or like any sort of disorder where they're afraid of people too, it's always ants.
Wow.
Because
that is
they're
very
just seen as the ultimate colony insect. And I don't know how true it is, but I've read it in several studies how it's like always ants. And I found it interesting in this movie because she was dealing with loneliness and having the abusive ex, and how like he basically excommunicated her from her family. And so when she left him, she had nothing. And then she started getting this bug paranoia.
Right.
I don't know exactly what was the cause, but I always found that interesting in that film.
that is really interesting. And from a personal perspective, I really relate to the film because a few years ago we had a bed bug scare,
Oh.
and it was the most psychologically wrenching experience of my entire life. And it's not even like they're doing anything really. They're like,
It's just disturbing.
it's so disturbing that I was just up all night researching on the internet. We had to like take all of our crap like away from the house, launder everything several times, like everything.
Jeez.
Have people come in, spray, tear our furniture apart, and I'm still scared. Like, and it's been years, and I'm like any little like sign of it, and I can relate to the paranoia of something so small, and you can't see it. You don't know what it's doing,
But it's doing
And-
something.
yeah, and she has this like perfect. She has Ashley she does such a good job at relating like this level of fear that might be a little bit irrational, because the level of pain that you're going to go through isn't really that much, but it's just so horrifying that
That
you don't
film
even want to go
also-
outside. You don't want
that film-
you don't want to go to sleep, and you don't want to go outside at the same time.
Yeah.
Believe it. Why don't you want to go outside?
Because you don't want people to look at you. You don't want to infect anybody else.
Oh, wow.
They're
No,
like
that film also, like, for me, it will always be part of my, like, burned in my mind for the most uncomfortable sex scene in any film
oh
ever.
yeah, that was
Like-
gross.
Like,
Room?
just the weirdest angles and the sweat, and but they were doing it on purpose because it's kind of one of those things where it's like, even though these two people are falling in love, but they're both paranoid and they're both still worried about the bugs, and so it's like a paranoid sex. Like, I don't know, it was just the weirdest sex scene ever, and I
There's a
will
lot of
never
foil.
forget it.
A
Yeah.
lot of foil,
Yeah,
tinfoil.
tinfoil.
They cover everything. Yeah.
Mm.
Oh,
That's
that's
a
a
good
strong
movie. Yeah.
image.
I forgot about that one until you mentioned it. And then
William
as soon as you
Friedkin is
said it, I'm
pretty
like, oh,
great.
that sex scene.
Yeah.
He's good with plays. You know, Bug is a was a play for a long time, and so was Killer Joe, and he eventually did that too. I haven't seen either of those, but early in his career, he did Boys in the Band, which is like one of the first gay plays, English language gay plays, to play for a long time in New York, and he did the film version of it, and I think it's great. I really like it. He makes he adds a cinematic quality to it. That's such a cliche thing to say, but he doesn't try to like make it. He doesn't change the play. He doesn't. I don't think he changes anything. He doesn't have the characters go outside, or he doesn't do any of those tricks to try to make it pretend like it's not a play. He just goes full on. This is a play. It's one setting. It's all these characters, and within that, like he does really interesting things with weather and lighting, and he's great. He's great. He's an
Yeah.
asshole. Oh my god, he's an asshole. I
He
mean,
seems like, from what I've seen, a really, really like maybe a fun-loving, a lovable curmudgeon. Does that make sense?
but I think in his younger days he was really manipulative, and he was terrible with his actors. I mean, the stories that you read about The Exorcist and not te- lying to actors and having actors abused to get certain performances out of them, and he's notorious for that kind of stuff. And he's an egomaniac. I think he's more of a curmudgeon now than he was when he was in the heat of all of that, all of his heyday. But it doesn't matter because I think he's really talented. I agree with you basically, but very few directors can make plays come alive, and I think he can do it.
Mm. And this feels like a play. The whole movie.
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
it's really lovely. And one other plus about it, it's part of the Lionsgate. I believe his name is Michael Palin or Tim Palin. He's the marketing director of Lionsgate, and he does like the most fabulous posters and photography.
Oh,
I actually own his art book, and he's done, like for Hostel and High Tension, and this one. It's like some really arresting photography.
hmm.
So yeah, that's my recommendation. I just quickly want to talk about 2007 French movie called Inside. It's really cool.
The pregnancy one?
Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah.
It's part of the same French New Wave.
I guess so.
Oh yeah, it's
in the
considered
same
with
time.
Martyrs and High Tension and Frontiers.
So it's kind of like a Home Alone style story if you really break it down to its bare bones. Because this woman, she's just alone in her house. It's like after her husband dies, and she's pregnant, and the woman who crashed into the car that killed her husband, her unborn baby was also killed. You do find out rather early, I believe, who this person is, but
It's Beatrice Dahl. That's who that person is. That's all you need to know.
Yeah,
The
and
the evil woman is played by Beatrice Dahl, and that's all you need to know because
yes, she's terrifying, and
she's the scariest actress.
she's wonderful, and there's so much gore that you wouldn't even think of, and it's just like, if you want to see Home Alone with the craziest gore and total fear for a pregnant woman, this is for you.
That's what I've always wanted.
A lot of people are
Never
going to be.
delivered.
I liked it quite a bit, and it's scarier because it's like a mother's rage,
Mm.
which scares me more than some random, like The Strangers. I'm not a fan.
What the English language one? You mean, or the French one?
the
Them.
Was it a remake?
Yeah, I think it's related. The French one is them, or it's the French word for them. But I wasn't sure if you meant that or you meant the English one with
The The Liv Tyler one,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
wasn't.
You guys didn't like that at all.
It's always on top horror movie lists of the last decade, and I'm just
Really?
flabbergasted by why it would be. I mean, I guess there's a lot of cool like tension, built up tension, and scary stuff in the house, but the
I
whole
feel like
movie
Funny
just did not
Games is a
work.
better version of that. Like
Well,
that
there's
same
a-
kind of movie.
Yeah, except lit really brightly and kind
But
of.
Monica has the best
kind of-
idea of the way how to fix the strangers, and don't say what it is, Monica, because it is the most brilliant idea I've heard
we
for a
both
horror
did.
movie.
We both talked
Yeah,
about it
that's
before.
what
Oh
we
my
were
God.
expecting to happen the whole time we were watching the movie,
That
and
is
both
so.
of us were sorely disappointed.
That is the best. What would you call it?
Punch Up.
It's just such a brilliant idea that you guys have to write a screenplay,
Well, I think what happened was we were both watching it in the theater.
thinking that that's what was going to happen,
Yeah,
and it
and we
never
like looked at each
did.
other like, oh,
I think that's how movie ideas start.
And
That's exactly
then
that
when the
way.
movie finished, we were like,
Hmm.
well, all right.
It didn't do what we thought it might, but now we have a great idea for a movie.
I guess so. I don't want to gank their. I guess it would be pretty easy to make. It's one location, but
Just a house.
Just write the screenplay, sell it for $1 million, and then have somebody else screw it up.
hopefully we haven't talked about it before on the podcast, so nobody else steals it. But
I think we did.
I think we did, but someone will have to dig. I can't even remember which one we did it on.
I
So
don't. Might
Well-
have been
remember.
next because that's another similar movie.
yeah, it might be. I don't know.
don't tell them which one it is.
But yeah, let's not. I think you're still safe. I really do.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not I'm not a huge fan of home invasion movies, but this one and Your Next are good. So, and Inside.
But you haven't seen the French Them yet,
No, I didn't know
or
it was
they? Yeah, it's supposed to be really good. I haven't seen that one.
I wonder if it ends the same.
As
I've
Like, what if
seen
they
them
had
on
branding?
Netflix too. I have to
It's
check
the
that
English
out.
Strangers.
no, I don't know. I don't know if it's a full-on remake, but I'm not sure. People say it's the most terrifying, blah 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 blah. So I would hope it would be better than the English language one you saw with Liv Tyler. Even
They
though I
said
like
that
Liv
about
Tyler.
the Evil Dead remake. The most terrifying film you'll ever see.
Brother.
How many? I wonder. We should find. We should. Someone should research how
The
many
most terrifying film you've ever seen.
horror
and then count.
movies have that
I'd
as
like
their
to know.
catchphrase.
Tallied up.
I'd like to know from all of you which one you think is the most terrifying movie you've ever seen.
Oh God, we should have made that the top special topic of this episode.
Well, let's finish up our recommendations and then maybe we can go back.
Okay. Who's next?
I saw Scream Blackula Scream a couple of nights ago,
Nice.
and it's the sequel to Blackula. It's a different director. See, I didn't do my research because again, we weren't planning on doing what we've been watching, but it's really fantastic. I like both Blackula and Scream Blackula Scream. They're not what you'd think. Somehow they're not what you'd think. They're not as cheesy as they sound. I think the name is cheesier than the movies, you know. And the name, and they're not. I don't think that they're. Even though Scream Blackula Scream has Pam Grier in it, I would not consider these.
I love Pam Grier.
Yeah, she's good in this. I would not consider this a blaxploitation film. I think that the writer director of both Blackula and Scream Blackula Scream take the material pretty seriously, and a lot of that has to do. It's the same lead actor in both playing Blackula. It's so terrible to say that. He's known in Scream Blackula Scream as Prince Mamawalde. He claims that he's an African prince, which it would have. It gives him more dignity. He doesn't reveal that his actual name is Blackula until the very end. But spoiler alert: the actor's name is William Marshall, and he's so fantastic. He brings such dignity to the role and to both of these movies. In Scream Blackula Scream, one of the characters is a collector of African art, and he's showing stuff in his apartment. And I think that there's this, and then Blackula says, I am this African prince, and I know where these artifacts come from, and I grew up there, and my family's from there. So there's all of this and they're not quite sure what to make of him, if he's telling the truth. He's a little scary, but he's also charming. And Pam Grier she's the girlfriend of the art collector, and she's suspicious of him, but she's intrigued by him. And so I think that there's this whole thing between the African American experience and the African experience. And in that time, in the 70s, there's this whole connection of, are we Africans? Are we Americans? What does it mean to be both at the same time? There was the whole Back to Africa movement. There's the whole negritude, or the whole African futurism. All this stuff is dancing around, I think, the edge of the film. And the fact that this very sophisticated African-American character is collecting African art, and people are dressed in a certain amount. People are dressed in a mixture of contemporary American and sort of kente cloth, So there's this whole thing about, like, what is that connection there? And Blackula is presented as both a menace and also as a tragic hero in both films, and particularly in this one. And Pam Grier, in this film, they bring in the whole voodoo thing, and Pam Grier is like a voodoo priestess.
I love her so much.
She's really good, because she plays this character not as some weirdo or some freak, but as a woman who's seriously involved in this tradition. It's part of her family tradition. And so they bring in that whole thing of, like, another culture from an African diasporatic part of the globe, and how do and the uncomfortable way all of these sort of things mix. And it's very, very interesting. And the colors, it's very 70s, lots of browns, lots of oranges, lots of yellows, but they're really beautifully done. And it's slow. Scream is slow. It's slower than Blackula. And Pam Grier does this thing where she does these reactions that go on for a really long time, so it's almost like a silent film thing, where she'll, like, take a pose or have a facial expression, and it'll just go and go and go, extended. So it's not a thrill a minute, and she tries to help him, and it doesn't work. So it's a fully rounded film, and it's very subtle, and not the blaxploitation, and not the kind of 70s schlock fest that you would think it is. It has a lot of dignity to it, and again, that's reflected in his performance. And this is an actor who you could see play King Lear. He's so good. You know what I mean? He's so nuanced that he takes this subpar material and he invests the character with such a sense of history and dignity, but also making him frightening. So I would recommend both films, and they're not what I expected at all. And my other one would be, this is not news. Everybody talked about this film last year, but A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. I finally saw it, and it's gorgeous. It's beautiful. It's funny. It's witty. It's, I was told surreal, and I was told Lynchian, and I was told Jarmuschian, and it is all those things, but it really, huh? What?
That's a lot of
That's
things.
a lot of things, and it is all those things, but it really is its own thing, and it's in Farsi, and the characters are Iranian, and the writer-director is a young Iranian woman who's a real firecracker. I've heard her on podcasts and stuff, and man, she's a fiery one. And the film is fiery, and the film's got a real kind of jauntiness to it. And it's definitely, I would almost say it's feminist, because it's very much a female-centric film, although our lead character is a guy, although it's interesting. The sexual politics of it are really fascinating, and it has a happy-ish ending, so it's one of those horror films where it is definitely a horror film, and it's definitely surreal, but it also, you go away feeling uplifted. I guess that's too much of a spoiler. I went away feeling uplifted. I felt like finally something Yeah. So anyway, I felt like it was a film about Los Angeles. Other people say it's supposed to be Tehran, but I knew Iranians when I lived in Los Angeles. I knew at least one Iranian said they're very similar cities. So there is this weird. It's in this weird zone. It's very much a David Lynch kind of industrial landscape where there's no signifying markers. It's just like the middle of the night of this strange city called Bad City. I'm sure it sounds better in Farsi, but the translation is Bad City. And I thought it could have been Iranian, like an Iranian community in Los Angeles. It felt very LA to me in certain ways. And then it could have actually not been the United States. But it's grim and delightful at the same time. I don't quite know how she pulled that off. Kenda, I know you saw it and you really liked it. I don't know.
I agree with everything that you're saying.
Oh, okay, cool.
I love that it was. I hate using the term cute, but it was without forcing that on you. It just was like insinuated, and that I don't want to do any spoilers, but that the girl was not cast in a typical form for her role, and she wasn't over sexualized like at all. And
even though there's sex in it.
Yeah.
Isn't there?
Or at least, I think
the implications of it. It's very romantic. It definitely has some romantic vibe to it.
Yeah, but it's not, it's like genuine in its feelings of romance. It's not like you're watching a teeny bopper movie where they're trying really hard. It actually feels like two genuine people being awkward with each other and like figuring things out. And it's really refreshing and really fun to watch.
And there are older characters too, like they deal with the parents. It's not one of those young person movies where parents don't exist. Like parents exist and they're just as interesting as the kids.
Yeah, just as fleshed out.
Yeah, and you know what else? It reminds me of one of my favorite movies of all time, the Scorsese film with Griffin Dunn, where he's going through the streets of New York at night, that one long night. After Hours. Have you guys seen that? It's from the early 80s. It's so fantastic. But it reminds me very much of that movie in that a long night, kind of a night that goes on and on and on, and all of these weird characters you meet and all of the weird unexpected things that happen. It isn't one night, but it has that feeling of it, of like kind of a dream of wandering around a city and the strange characters and strange things that happen. So I started recording again. We were having some technical issues with Skype, but I basically said what I needed to say about A Girl Walks Home Alone at Night. Everybody should watch it. It did turn out to be as good as everybody said it was going to be, which it's always heartwarming when that happens because it doesn't happen very often. So
the warm and fuzzies.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say it was really refreshing after watching I Saw the Devil, because I saw that right afterwards, and I was like, I need something happy and like light, and I was like, perfect.
It really does hit the spot.
Yeah.
Kenda, you want to go next?
Sure.
Okay.
I got Oculus, that was made in 2013. I probably watched that maybe like 6 months ago, at the recommendation of my little sister, who has turned into a horror nerd too, so it's working out.
Yay!
How old is she?
She just turned 21. So, yes. So Oculus is somewhat interesting, and I like that Crystal called it cute, because I totally did not think of it that way. One of the lead actresses is Karen Gillan, and I love her from Doctor Who, so that's great. But basically,
she's the main reason why I wanted to watch this movie.
Yeah, like I
was like, what? Amy Pond's in a horror movie?
What about Sackhoff?
I don't even know.
Starbuck's in it.
Starbuck from BSG. I didn't know she was in it until I actually started watching it.
Oh, yeah, I didn't either until in there. But it's a brother and a sister. They're grown up, and the movie's interesting that it's consistently told in flashbacks up to a certain point. And she's basically, they're separated at one point, and the brother goes through intensive therapy from their trauma in their childhood. And then she just is kind of forced into the real world and has to deal with what happened on her own. So then their worlds collide when they come back together as adults. And she thinks he's been brainwashed, and he thinks that she's just psychotic. But
Yeah.
she's like, we have to destroy this mirror that destroyed our childhood, and it definitely plays with the perceptions of what's real and what's not. So the whole time you're like, okay, is this actually happening, or is the mirror making this happen? Like, is he actually crazy? Is she actually crazy? And
Yeah, I
Just
kept
question
waiting for especially that movie played a lot with like ghosts messing with timelines.
yeah,
I love it.
And I
love
kept
that
waiting
stuff.
for that to come into play more. I think that's the only thing that really upset me about this movie is it didn't really. And
There's
then
a
when
few
it did,
scenes,
I didn't
though.
really like it.
Wait, what'd
Yeah.
you say, Crystal?
There's a few though. It does hit that kind of 1408 flavor that I know that you were looking for,
Mhm.
and that's why I thought it was cute because it
yeah,
hits
It
a little
tried.
bit of those same flavors that.
I do think, like, as you were talking, I realized it actually does have kind of a general, like a generic theme in common with Martyrs, and the fact that this whole time you think this person is wrong and they're crazy. and
Yeah,
you're
that's
just
why.
like,
That's
oh, snap.
immediately what I started
You're like,
thinking
That's
of.
legit.
yeah.
Yeah.
This person's not so crazy.
Yeah.
Also,
Yeah.
a light bulb
I
scene. that's
enjoyed
cool.
Oculus, and I would recommend it to people if they want like a fun horror movie to watch. But I wouldn't recommend it as like a great horror film.
Yeah, no, it was definitely
course.
more playful and
Mhm.
interesting in the ideas it brought up. Like the story itself wasn't super mind blowing. It like the acting was good because of the people they had, but like it's not going to be anything that's earth shattering. But it is interesting. It's definitely like a little puzzle to.
It was really interesting
Worked
to
it.
hear Amy Pond without a Scottish accent.
Yeah, that was kind of weird.
What is her? What accent does she use? American or English?
I believe she's just American.
American-ish.
Yeah.
She's got that upspeak.
What now? Who?
Yes.
Which one was Starbuck in BSG? Battlestar
She's like
Galactica.
the tough lady,
The
blonde.
blonde. That's
Main
what.
the
Pilot.
blonde. Yeah,
Yeah, she's the mother in
Oh,
I believe.
In
wow.
Oculus.
Ghost mom.
Flashbacks. Yep.
Yeah, no,
She's
I
really
thought
scary in it.
she was
Yeah.
scary in Battlestar Galactica in her own interesting, fiery way.
Second one,
Okay.
but um,
No, go ahead.
okay, it's old. It's Pet Cemetery, 1989.
Woo!
Whoa,
Um,
still haven't
It-
seen it.
was
Oh,
one of my
really?
favorite movie adaptations of Stephen King's books, even though it's slightly different. I always love the melodrama in Stephen King's earlier movies because it's just like so over the top, it's almost funny. But there'll be random times where there's something that's actually so horrific it will like stop you in your tracks. And for me, that was the Miko Hughes, the little baby in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
When he came back from the dead and was chasing people around with a scalpel. I thought that was brilliant. And that actually freaked me out watching that, and I didn't expect to get freaked out.
Hmm.
He's pretty
Uh,
creepy.
I love Herman Munster in that movie. And,
Yes, that's pretty great.
I'd like to add it's because of that movie that when I was a kid I failed one of my spelling tests.
Are you
because
serious?
They spell cemetery wrong in the movie, and I'm like, this is how they spell it on the cover.
And they're like,
oh,
no.
um,
I will
Also
never
something-
forgive that movie for that.
also something I heard that Del Toro would like to remake Pet Cemetery someday.
Hmm.
I would
Sounds
love
interesting.
that.
That would be really interesting. Kenda, how did you? I have a question for you. I saw this fairly recently.
Mhm.
How do you feel about the really clear? There's some borderline animal abuse going on.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's a
He
scene
just
where
throws a cat
Oh.
around.
he is euthanizing a cat,
Yeah.
and you can tell that they're picking up a real cat and stabbing it, and the shot does not cut as he puts it back on the ground and it lies there limply.
Wait, they're actually injecting the cat in the movie?
Something happens where he just falls right to sleep on the ground, and I was like, and they didn't cut or anything. It wasn't like
Yeah.
these days they would have cut it or had it be CG, and it was a live cat. And maybe they did some tricks, but it seemed pretty clear to me that they were
So
roughly handling
they
this cat.
actually drugged this cat like for that scene because I actually wasn't aware of that.
Not sure, but if you watch it again, you'll be like, oh, I don't feel comfortable with that.
Yeah, I guess I didn't even consider that because I
I
read
think
the book.
we all just automatically think Hollywood magic all pets are always safe.
But I've kind of, I guess I've grown a more of a watchful eye over effects these days. And when I was staring at this cat, the cat never changed. So, and it didn't cut away. So I'm pretty
now
sure
I don't know if
something
I can
happened.
watch it.
I'm curious now. Like I feel like I need to rewatch this scene because it wasn't something that was so apparent that I was like, oh, I can't watch this. Like they're abusing this animal. I didn't even notice. I assumed that it was a trained animal, and like Monica said,
It could be.
I assumed. So I don't know. I
It
have
could
to
be,
look.
but it seemed like a time in which maybe nobody cared. I'm not sure.
Yeah, here it is. A film that should be buried. The Pooch, let me see. Pet Cemetery, additional atrocities in the execrable, such as the remarkably blasé approach to animal abuse and additional atrocities in the execrable horror sequel, Pet Cemetery. So, it doesn't say Pet Cemetery 1, but there's another article here. Yes, animals were harmed. 21 films and TV shows that killed
Oh my god.
It's an AV club. Let's see if Pet Cemetery is on this list.
Because I mean, I remember being put off by the little boy's performance because the things that he had to say and to act out were, I was like, wow, they're actually having like a child do this, like they're not cutting away from it. And I remember that being surprising and it added to the creepiness. So I guess I could see how they would do that with the cat.
Yeah, and I think it's really important to see it.
Mm-hmm.
The Stephen King adaptation in particular is really, really interesting, and it goes to crazy places. And
Yeah.
that was the only thing that made me feel a little icky about it.
Well, I could see why.
I think that's the reason why I've avoided Cannibal Holocaust this whole time, because I would rather see Green Inferno where I know nobody's harmed. And in Cannibal Holocaust, animals are definitely harmed.
Really?
Yeah.
It says an old boy.
Oh, the squid.
Oh, God.
Aww.
Nobody cares about the poor squids.
I didn't find Pet Cemetery on that list, even though it came up when I put in the
When you
search
Googled
terms.
it.
So I don't know.
Well, I'm not sure about it because they didn't start putting those "no animals been harmed in this film" messages like that early. So it just seemed like an awfully strange shot to keep. I mean, when the cat's actually dead, you can see that, a cat is fake. It's a fake cat,
Yeah.
and that's fine. But in this particular scene, like he grabs him and the shot does not change. And so I was just curious how on earth they were able to get this cat to do this.
Probably just seriously sedated the cat.
That also seems like abuse.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, but I'm like, that's still not ethical. Like, just go around seducing animals or
Seducing animals.
Well, that's not ethical either.
Not ethical.
Some people say that's abuse too. I don't
That's gonna
know.
be one of our
That's a
clips
different
now. Just go
movie.
around seducing animals.
So,
that was great.
Monica, have you done your 2 films? Do you want to go ahead?
Concern.
Are you
Sure.
done, Penda? Do you have anything else to add?
No, that was it.
Cemetery
Sorry, I didn't mean to
Holocaust.
make you question it.
Oh no, not at all.
Okay.
That does change my outlook on the director and the actors
Yeah, we
involved,
gotta go
but
back and look
the
that
movie
up.
itself, like as a whole, I still
I like
enjoyed
Pierce
it.
Brosnan.
Just take a peek at that scene and then tell
Yeah,
me what you think.
Well, I'm
trying
going to
to
close
find
my
it
eyes when that
without-
scene comes up now. Or I'm going to look away. Or just pretend like I didn't hear any of this. It's like, oh, it's CGI. Even,
Yeah,
though,
sure.
even though there wasn't CGI then.
The best CGI ever.
Wait, what is
Is somebody
that?
watching it?
Yeah, Jesus
Oh, I was
Christ.
like, wait,
I
what's
clicked
happening?
on
Is
it, and
somebody
it's like
getting
a
murdered in
lady
one of your guys'
screaming.
apartments?
That was terrifying.
I did
It's
not
my
expect
ringtone.
that. Like I expected something quiet leading in. It was just a woman hysterically screaming. Okay, I'm done.
Was the woman harmed? I don't care about that. I
No,
just don't
it
want-
was like the little boy about to get hit by the semi.
You know, I was thinking we were
Yeah.
supposed to talk about Martyrs tonight, and I think that would be something to talk about of like not actor abuse, but what actors have to go through in some of these horror films.
Yeah,
Matt
we could talk
Bullock,
about
yeah.
Human Centipede then.
Oh yeah, is it bad?
I mean, the actors are not great, uh, but they also have to go through some crazy stuff. And I wonder what got them to say, yes, I'll be in this movie.
That's always the question, you know. Why did they say yes, you know?
Maybe the script was originally Peter Pan and he switched it out on.
One of those times where they lie to you until you're like actually strapped in.
Yeah, they're like,
Back
I don't remember
out.
the scene in Peter Pan where we're all strapped together.
You know, we're just lost boys. All right, anyway, we're getting way off topic.
All right, yes.
Monica,
So my movies. My first recommendation is do not watch this movie.
Ooh.
It's called Nurse. Came out 2013.
Sounds promising already.
Nurse 3D.
Yeah, Nurse 3D.
It's called Nurse 3D.
Yeah. Well, on Netflix it wasn't
Was
called
it 3D?
3D, which is why I had a hard time finding
Does she
it.
have large breasts?
No,
Is
it
that the
wasn't
3D part?
Hope so.
That's part of it.
It's directed by someone, I'm going to try to say his last name. Arniakowski.
He doesn't deserve to have it said correctly.
Well, maybe
Anyways, I watched it because it has Katrina Bowden in it, and I like her a lot from 30 Rock and Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. I think she's adorable, and she's a lot of fun to watch, and she was the only good thing in this movie.
Was she the nurse?
No, she wasn't. Well, she was
Oh.
a nurse, but she was the
Okay.
good nurse. The bad nurse, my main problem with this movie, aside from the fact that it was a horrible movie. all
Don't
the
spoil
actors
it for
were
me. I
awful.
am going to watch it.
Well,
Why?
it has nothing to do with the plot. The problem I have with this movie is it was supposed to be about this sexy nurse who kills men who cheat on their wives and stuff like that.
That does sound
She's the most
promising.
hideous woman I think I've ever seen in my life, and all the characters were supposed to be like madly in love with her, and I just could not watch her half the time. She looked so bad. Like, I hate being like this about people, but it looked like she had really a botched plastic surgery on her lips. And she tried to, like... I've seen pictures of her where she actually looks like... I had to look this actress up in real life to see if this is just the movie.
Yeah.
Some pictures, yeah, she looks great. But I feel like she's a bad plastic surgery story.
Aw.
Because later, I've seen more recent pictures of her, and she looks... not lovely. Not lovely at all.
Is this really the thing that kept you from enjoying the film? Or...
No, the movie was bad too.
Okay.
But it
the
was just
number
like
one.
the final nail. I
That's
guess
so
the final nail.
sad.
But the movie was pretty horrendous film. Katrina Bowden was really the only thing, and it made me sad too because I felt like she was actually, because usually she's the character you cast to be that really hot blonde that doesn't have to say or do anything, and in this movie she was actually given a role to play, and she tried and she did like really good as that role, and I feel bad because I'm like, nope, it's not gonna happen. Sorry.
Aw.
Should she have been the nurse? The bad nurse? Would that have been
She
better?
could've. She could have, because she's gorgeous.
Huh.
And I'm trying to find a picture of this lady, like, to show you.
Oh, it's so
Oh, no, no.
sad.
I got a picture. I see what you mean.
Yeah.
You need
It's
a
some
mental
pictures,
picture?
too, like the really Photoshop pictures, like the cover of the movie. Yeah, she
The
looks dead
cover of the movie,
gorgeous.
she looks like Mila Jovovich.
But that's incredibly photoshopped, and that is not how she looks in real life. But my problem is that she was like a sex symbol in this movie,
No,
and
the
every
character.
man that came across her was like, "Oh, I've got to get that," and I'm like,
Like, really?
she put a bag over her head. Like, she is literally that actress.
That's so mean. What if she listens to this?
I know. I was gonna say. I really hope.
Kill herself.
I'm not gonna put nurse in the description on YouTube in case she searches to see if anybody's talked about nurse.
Paz de la Huerta, let me just say, on behalf of Monica, it's very mean-spirited. It's so mean.
Yeah.
Monica
Paz de la
Means here.
Huerta.
You're a fine actress, I'm sure. She
Well,
was
wait a
in A
minute.
Walk to Remember.
Was
What?
she any good though, Monica? Forget about her lips.
She can't.
It's like, yeah, she can't get past
Alluring
it.
voice.
She's a great voice.
Yeah, a very alluring voice, but that's about all I would say for her.
She's in Boardwalk Empire, too.
Yeah, which surprises me. I don't know.
She looks great in those costumes.
Her acting could have also just been a bad director. I don't know.
Yeah.
But in this movie, her acting was awful too. Just way over the top and ridiculous. Like
What's the point of the
Parker
3D?
Posey would say she was awful.
Wait a minute.
Posey is
I like
amazing.
Parker
And
Posey.
she
What do
probably
you,
wouldn't say she was awful.
why do you say that?
I love Parker Parker Posey, but Parker Posey way overacts. But that's part of why I love her.
Sometimes, not always.
Yeah, no. I mean,
She
Parker
can
Posey
be
legit.
really subtle when she wants to
I
be.
adore Parker Posey.
So, but why was it 3D? Was it really about her breasts?
I didn't watch it in 3D.
No, but why would they make it in 3D? Like, what was the why this movie and not? Were there scenes of needles or things going into the screen, like medical? I guess they don't do that.
I remember one finger pointing like this that made me go, "Why did they do that?" Like literally in the screen. But I didn't know it was 3D when I was watching it.
I'm just curious. I
don't remember really there
Maybe
being.
it still is a boob joke.
Hmm?
Maybe it still is just a boob joke.
Oh yeah.
What theater are they showing this in? Anyway.
So what's your actual recommendation?
So my actual recommendation, the one that you should watch, we just got the HBO Go in our house, or HBO Now in our house, and so the first thing that I watched was a movie I've been dying to see, and it's called What We Do in the Shadows.
That's your movie, Monica. That's yours.
I loved it so
Monica,
much.
that's the greatest movie ever.
It's so cute.
I watched
that
it.
That movie is cute.
I watched it 4 times in a row without breaking the first time I saw
Oh wow! I want to watch it again. Like I seriously loved it. My favorite line in the movie that I just
many great
I could not
lines.
control myself was guys, we're werewolves, not
swearwolves. Yeah.
I lost it as soon as they.
There's
said
so
that.
many
I was
great
like,
lines
"There's no
though.
automatic."
There's a guy that works at the pet store, and every time I go in there, he doesn't say hello or anything. He just presents another line from What We Do in the Shadows.
So funny.
Oh.
Dude, it was so brilliant. It had so many references from so many different vampire stories. Like, even... Because it's a really dry humor, and I wasn't expecting my boyfriend to like it, because he doesn't tend to go for that drier humor. But because he's a big, like, vampire fan, like, he loves World of Darkness, he loves Dracula, he loves vampires, he got all the references, got all the jokes, and it was just the funniest thing to him also. So that made me happy that he really liked it too.
The thing that people haven't said that surprises me, well, there's 2 things. It's so visually beautiful. It's so sumptuous visually.
Yeah.
All of those graphics that come in, not just in the beginning though, but they're
I was incredibly impressed with the set design.
Yeah,
of the house
it's
that they
so
lived in.
beautiful.
This is gorgeous.
So beautiful, and the cinematography and the kind of color palette that they inside the house and outside the house is kind of different. And then the other thing is it's so moving. I mean, I think the love story.
I cried in it.
You cried? It's
cried.
so amazing the way that love story goes.
I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending for the Frou Frou vampire, I cried. I was like, that is the sweetest
it's
thing
so sweet.
I have ever seen in a movie.
The
period.
actress,
Just the sweetest.
The actress is fabulous. I mean, she's only got.
Vampire is directing Thor 3, BT Dubs.
Wait, what?
That Froofy Vampire is directing Thor 3.
Oh,
Are you
yeah?
serious? I was wondering.
He was co-director
he
of
stole
this,
the
I
show
think.
for me, and I don't really know who he is.
He's the Flight of the Conchords.
No, the other guy's the Flight of the Conchords
No.
guy.
No.
Vladislav.
I believe he directs some of the episodes of Flight of the
I saw that
yeah,
he was
yeah.
in an episode, but I didn't see that he directed. He stole the show from me. I absolutely loved him. Like
I love
loved
all
Jermaine.
4 of
That's
them.
the main reason why I wanted to watch it.
I love all
I
4
watch
of
pretty
them.
much anything Jermaine's in, but
Yeah. Well, no, not just 4, 5, 6, all the guys. And I also think it's an incredibly sweet. The film it's like, listen to me, Monica, it's your choice, but I have to say these things because they've never been said. I don't know why people don't see that. I think the film is a metaphor for, similar to Shaun of the Dead. It's guys of a certain age figuring out how to be friends, heterosexual guys figuring out how to be friends with each other and how to sort of that transition from dudes partying to having to take life a little more serious, having to be more stable, more serious. This doesn't go into it that much because they're not really aging necessarily, but it's definitely about guys of a certain age.
well, they definitely deal with them being like out of touch with the modern world.
Well,
and them having to
there's that.
adapt.
I just remember that scene where he's like, "What are you doing? I'm trying to do an erotic dance for my friends."
I was in the zone.
It's like, oh yeah, he's like, "Oh, I saw that from the window. It looked great. You
Yeah.
ruined it. You just ruined it."
The improv is
Hilarious.
so much of that is improv. You know, I can't tell what's written and what's improv because their improv is so their skills are so they have
definitely-
mad skills.
And they
as
got
they
like
say.
the perfect cast for it
Oh.
too. Like everybody they chose was
And apparently the computer guy is really a computer guy.
Stu.
Stu is actually not an actor. And also the woman who plays the police woman who comes in, she's not a police woman, but she plays police women at parties. And she's like a secretary or something, but she goes to parties and plays that character, and they saw her or something, or someone told them about
She
her.
just like went to one of their parties.
Or something like that. It's such a great. I mean, it's Auckland, right? It's like how big of a comedy community is there, right? I'm sure they all know each other, and all these people have been working together. I mean, you can totally tell that's. I feel like you can sense that sense of community.
Yeah, and then when they reveal the beast, I can't tell you.
Oh God,
So much. Ken, have you seen this yet?
Kenda's so confused. None of this.
Yeah, no, I have not.
You
Ken,
gotta
I
see
will
it.
give you my HBO Now login.
Kenda's-
Watch Game of Thrones and watch
Don't
this
tell
movie.
them.
It's basically it's a mockumentary about 4 vampires roommates in
And they're all
Auckland.
the different styles of vampires
Yeah.
too from
Oh,
film.
sweet.
They're all from
Oh,
different
that's for that
periods, and just their kind of dealing with living together and living in New Zealand and in a relatively major metropolitan city, and and their relationships with each other. There's friendship issues, and a new guy's brought in, and then there's a love relationship. There's a couple of love stories that sort of play out.
And then there's the rivalry of the Nosferatu's new ward.
Jeez.
Like, because the youngest one out of them before was Nosferatu's only ward. And he was like, "Oh yeah, we've been best buds for 187 years." And then Nosferatu makes that other guy, and he's just like, "I don't like him.
There's all
Yeah,
kinds
I
of
don't like this guy.
friendship, jealousy.
We shouldn't have him in our party. I don't like him."
I think it's very much about straight guys in their mid 30s hanging out together, and all the kind of dramas that unfold, and guys trying to love each other in a weird way. I don't know. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, but it seems to me that's the spirit of it. Even though there is gore and it is a horror. I mean, they are vampires that kill people.
You mentioning it, there is an interesting that I'm just now thinking about, like new wave in cinema about life goes on after you're young and virile. Like a lot of movies nowadays aren't about the 20-somethings; they're about the 30, 40, 50-somethings.
Well, I
It
think
used to be in cinema, like after you hit 30, you were just kind of dead to film. And now that's when your career can pick up, usually.
Well, I heard a theory that from like the 70s through the 90s, like the majority of people who started seeing movies were, young teenagers and
Yeah.
children, and before that it was adults that
Yeah.
would go to see movies. And so now I think those people are growing up and the
Yeah.
movie trying to grow up with them.
Yeah.
These people that grew up loving and
Like
going
the Harry
through-
Potter movies.
yeah.
They aged with you.
Exactly.
They sure did.
Yeah, it's true. I think that's right. But kids are going to kids are not going to the movies now. The 13-year-olds now, right?
Not so much.
I don't. Why would they? There's too many cool
and
things
so
to do.
expensive
Well,
and
and it's
home.
like all the comic book movies aren't necessarily marketed to the younger audience.
Right.
They're marketed to the people who grew up with the comic books.
Right.
Yep.
So they are the 30, 40-something-year-olds.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. Like kids
Yeah.
these days have other alternatives to going to the theater now. So it's not so much a thing.
Yeah.
It's depressing.
It's also too expensive for them.
Yeah.
Yes. Monica, are you eating spaghetti? Or are you eating worms?
Yeah.
Viago, the frilly one, was
Yeah.
like always so concerned about cleanliness, and
And
he was
he's
always the messiest.
disastrous.
eater. Like he'd always
Yeah.
just be like, I can't control it.
I know, it's-
Vampires don't put down newspapers. Some vampires do. There's a, but speaking of pedophiles, we were talking about pedophilia with. Oh, we didn't bring it up on the podcast, so I'm
Let's
sorry.
Great segue. Speaking of pedophiles,
I was going to mention that movie
This
because
wasn't it.
we were talking about the book version, just for people who might be listening if this makes it through.
Seducing.
We were talking about the book version of Let the Right One In. And apparently, in the book version of Let the Right One In, according to Kenda, the guy's a pedophile, the man who's with the young vampire. Whereas in the movie, it's not. It's
So clear.
it seems to be implied that they have an ongoing relationship, but that he's not necessarily looking for kids. But she's a young vampire who's exploiting his pedophilia, right, Kenda? That's what's happening in the book.
Basically, it's weird because he thinks he's.
oh, I see where you're going with this.
Because there's a very tiny little moment in What We Do in the Shadows with these two little girls who are vampires, and they said they're walking around downtown Auckland on like a Friday night, and they're sort of
They
all
keep
little.
introducing other vampires
Yeah.
on the screen as they come across
Yeah,
them.
and there's these two little girls who are sisters, I guess, little blonde girls with glasses, nerd. And they said they're waiting on the corner because they've hooked up with a pedophile who's coming to meet them that they're going to eat.
Yeah, because it's like Vladislav looks at him. He's like, "What are you guys gonna do tonight?" "Oh, we're gonna kill this fat pedophile tonight." He's like, "Oh, cool."
So it totally reminded me of that when you were talking about Let the Right One In. Because it's exactly the same situation, I guess, in a way, sort of, kind of.
On an unrelated side note, that little girl in the book, her name is Eli, and I'm trying to convince Scott to let me name our daughter Eli in the future.
I thought
And-
she was actually a boy and was
She
like
was.
had a
Okay.
gender change. Yeah,
Her whole name was like Elias, but
yeah.
Wait,
I like
wait,
Eli.
what? Gender change?
Yeah, there's a shot in the film that shows a close up of her genitals, and there's
That
a
happens in the
clear cut,
it's like
surgery.
yeah, it's like Ken parts.
Wait,
Yeah.
Barbie doll.
what?
Yeah. Look it up. It's a
I
thing.
don't remember it actually showing her genitals, but it shows like right above it, and there's a scar where she's had
Yeah.
like a surgery.
But why
Change
but
your
why would the character have needed a sex change?
It,
People
it
are more
wasn't-
willing to help little girls.
It wasn't necessarily like willing.
Oh, I
It
don't know.
was like in the backstory.
In the book.
In the book, he was a little boy in like some peasant village in like the medieval ages, and his mom was desperate to feed her children, so the emperor was holding like some kind of challenge, and he wanted everyone to bring their most beautiful boys to the castle. So she brought this little boy to the castle, and it turns out it was like a vampire that got off on basically, what's the word I'm looking for? Not circumcising.
Castration?
Yeah, thank you. Castrating little boys and drinking the blood from it.
Oh, that's
And
really what happened. Oh man.
so that's what happened to this little boy / girl, and he just started to identify more as a girl, so he would dress in dresses and
But so there's no sexual contact with the pedophile in the book?
it's implied that
They have other ways of
little
doing
girl
it?
keeps like holding it out, like if you do this for me, then
Wow.
then you'll get this. And most of the time, what the pedophile just wants is to touch her. He just like not even, I don't even know, sexually, like
He just wants
he almost like
closeness?
puts her on a pedestal, like you are a statue and you are beautiful.
Right.
I want to worship you.
Interesting.
So, it's
the book
beautiful.
sounds much more complicated than the film.
It is, but it's really, really, really good.
And some of these scenes are actually set in the past. You actually go back to.
Yeah, like she shares
Interesting.
this with Oscar by like touching him and like transferring those memories.
They should totally do like a mini-series version of the novel, which gives all of this information, because it's all of this makes it seem more interesting to me. I
Yeah.
wasn't that wild about the film, honestly. I know everybody went nuts for it, but this sounds a lot more interesting to me,
Yeah, it was pretty great. It was well thought out.
and really creepy.
Like screwed up, but
Yeah.
it definitely created like every character had something about them where like even the bullies, it goes a little bit into their backstory where you actually kind of care about them.
Interesting.
Then they do something else stupid and you're like, oh, okay, I guess you deserve to get beaten up. Like
But they do keep this in the movie. She still has the scar, is what you're saying, Crystal. But we don't
Yeah.
have any explanation as to what that history is. We just know something weird went on.
Yeah.
No, me and Crystal saw this movie in the theater together, and I remember us talking about it afterwards because we didn't know what it was, and it wasn't until I don't remember if we looked it up, somebody that read it, or someone we knew had read the book, and then they're like, "Oh, it used to be a dude."
Something
Yeah.
like that.
Interesting.
Oh, the little boy like kind of struggles with those feelings because at first he's like, "Oh, I like this little girl," and then it's like, "Oh, this isn't like a little girl. Well, then maybe it's just my friend." But in the end, like he still loves her, and it's kind of interesting that it doesn't make that's not like the focal point of the book. Like
It's not really the movie either. They're too young to have they don't have a sexual relationship in the movie, do they? No.
I don't think so.
Is the American remake worth seeing?
Absolutely not. I mean, it's a shot-for-shot remake almost, with, just American stuff in it. And I feel really sorry for Chloe
The
Moretz,
actress.
because she's always remaking these horror classics that are like shot-for-shot remakes for no reason. Like
Like
she was in
Carrie.
Carrie as well, and she should stop doing those. She's great, but that's not what she should be doing.
Right.
This movie was made really like for no reason.
Hmm.
It doesn't add anything. It's
Right,
just
right.
what I'm trying to
That's a
say.
shame.
And the Swedish one is already filmed so nicely. There's really no reason.
There was
to
no need
revisit
for
it.
a remake.
Yeah. It
I
seems
guess
like
American-
the book is offering a lot of opportunity for a different version, like a seriously different version. Why would you not go back?
Yeah,
Anyway.
and that's another thing that made me upset was I was watching the making of the American version. He goes on and on and on about how he was using the book as his source material, and I'm like, this is shot for shot, dude. What are you talking about? It's the movie that you were referencing.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So this is the guy who did Cloverfield, I believe, and
hated
the New
that.
Planet of the Apes.
Ugh.
Which was supposed to be good, though, right?
Yeah, the New Planet is fine. I think that's where
Wait.
he should be, and I don't know why he wanted to remake this. To be
Did I
honest,
see the new Planet of the Apes? No, I never saw the new one. I was thinking of the
Oh.
Tim Burton one. I'm like,
no, the new one's good.
Yeah, everybody says it. It's gotten great reviews. Yeah, I just have no interest. I wasn't interested in the originals.
yeah,
I'm not sure why.
I'm with you on that. I just have no interest in it. The
So,
only reason why I watched the Tim Burton one was because I'm like, oh, Tim Burton, okay.
But it's supposed to be unwatchably bad or like laughably bad. The Tim Burton one.
Yeah, Tim
I
Burton
was too young
awful.
to even like review it, and I forgotten almost immediately all the details. So,
All right. It's
anyway,
late.
we gotta go.
This is long.
We'll
Thanks so much
whittle
for
this down. We each have two. Monica, do you want to go back over everybody's recommendations
yeah, sure.
real quick?
So from Crystal, we had Bug and Inside. From Noel, we had Scream, Blackula Scream, and A Girl Who Walks Alone. Girl Who Walks Home Alone at Night.
I think it's just a girl walks home alone at night.
Oh, okay.
Close enough.
Yeah. From Kenda, we have Oculus and Pet Cemetery, and from me, we have Do Not Watch Nurse, and do watch What We Do in the Shadows.
For sure. Double that,
Sweet.
triple that.
Yay!
All right. Well, thanks for watching. We'll come back sometime for another
Soon.
video.
There'll be plenty more soon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Oh, and email us at tell us your fears
Right.
at gmail.com.
Gmail.com.
Yes.
Gmail.com, right?
If you have
And
questions, suggestions.
like,
If you love
comment,
Nurse and thought the main
subscribe.
actress was beautiful, let me know.
Oh,
Yeah, give
God.
Monica a piece of your mind.
oh my god, I feel so bad.
Anything else that we should have edited out?
I know.
Comment.
Anybody who was insulted by any of this, we didn't mean any of it.
That
Check us
dude,
out
that
on
Mexican
YouTube
dude that's
and
in,
iTunes.
Martian, we're sorry.
Oh, the dude. Who,
Sorry.
We cut that out.
okay,
Bye,
good night.
everyone.
Thanks.